The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Welcome back to Darkside the Pooch. My son, you heard him, he was just in the studio before he just abruptly left, and he just got nipped at by his 9-year-old Australian Shepherd, and you know he teases the hell out of the dog. He blows on it, he gives it Zerberts, you know, and the only way he'll stop is if the dog licks him in the face. So he knows to lick him right in the mouth, and he'll stop long enough. And then, of course, he goes around. I was like, give your dog a break now. You're going to get on his nerve. And God love that dog. It's got a huge amount of patience. But he did just take a nip at him. Now, we took him for a walk Sunday, 7 miles. We were in the neighborhood, and we were just walking, and we were both feeling really good. And I said, I can walk until it gets dark if you want to. And so we just kept walking. We kept walking. I had this little app, and I looked down, and we ended up going 6.9 miles. And I said, man, dog's going to sleep good tonight. And then the next morning, he seemed like he was having a hard time getting up and downstairs. My first question to you is, can you wear a dog out?
Absolutely. Yeah, they can get sore.
Okay. So
just like we can.
So I just made him sore because he's been kind of in a weird, like he's laying in the middle of the floor in different areas of the house, which he normally doesn't do. Like he just can't get up. And now, but today he's much better now. He's running all over the place.
Now, if it happens every time you go on a walk, especially if you do it consistently, because you think like us, you know, you get back into working out. And I know you walk your dog all the time, so it's not like, you know, this is a new thing for him.
Yeah.
But consistent exercise shouldn't make you sore every time you do it. If it does, there's something wrong.
Okay.
So if you do the same thing consistently and he's still acting that way, then, you know, you may have something going on.
Yeah, I need to bring him anyway. He's due for his annual, but he kept, after we got to about mile 4, he kept pulling me towards the shade. It was 80. It wasn't hot on Sunday. It was a nice day, Easter Sunday. And he kept pulling me towards the sun, and I would let him go, and he would just lay in the grass, you know, for a good 10 minutes. Then he'd get up and start walking again. But it's the first time I've seen him act old.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Which is kind of strange. It's kind of a strange thing the first time you see your dog, and you can kind of tell that they're getting a little old. So This Dark Side of the Pooch brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics. As a matter of fact, we're going to have Seth on our big show coming up this weekend on the starting lineup, ABC 3340 from 9:30 to 10 o'clock. He's going to be bringing some old toys. I'm going to ask him to bring one of those vibrating NFL games. Remember the ones, the little NFL vibrating games? I'm going to see if he's got one of those bad boys. He's got all kinds of stuff like that, 60s, 70s, 80s toys, comics, stuff still in the box, all kinds of cool stuff. Check out his store, Sasquatch Toys and Comics down there in beautiful Homewood. What's going on at Rossbridge Animal Hospital? Everything good?
Now, are you talking about the game where they just vibrated around? There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
There was no controls. It was just we're gonna turn these things loose and turn this thing on, and
you line them up, and sometimes you'd lose the football after the first day, and you just take a little piece of paper and stick it up under his arm because there would be fumbles and stuff, and you just turn it on, and sometimes the play lasted 5 seconds, sometimes it lasted an hour.
You know that you just. The things that used to entertain us. Can you imagine if like you gave that to like my 11-year-old? If I gave that to my 11-year-old, he would look at this and say, "This is the biggest piece of crap that I have ever seen."
Hey, for us, it was cool, man, because it was
the coolest thing you could get.
It ran on its own, man. It was super cool.
And you remember the handheld? Like there was this handheld football game.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, before Game Boy, before any of that stuff, it's a handheld football game. And it was, I mean, we would spend hours and hours and hours playing that thing. And I mean, it wasn't even graphics. It was almost like a glorified mechanical Etch-a-Sketch.
It was, mine was just a line. And that was the running back. And you go up, down, forward, backwards. And you just go like basically that. And you try to run in between the other ones while the other ones were trying to tackle you. And it would move like this. It would like this, and you could like run, and it had a timer on it. Yeah. And I used to play that thing, man, all the time.
It was like the quarterback's body was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback's body was always there, but then the arm would like move. You know?
No, I think you're talking about something beyond my years.
Maybe so.
Mine just had a line on it. It was just like just a line. It wasn't just. Yeah. There was a football field with lines on it, and that's what it. And the lines ran in between the lines, and Yeah. And man, I mean, dude, it's weird. I think our childhood was fantastic. I think we had the last of the great childhoods. I really do. I'll tell my kids this. I would not want to be a child now. There's from the bullying to the internet to the porn to all the stuff that's out there on computers. We didn't have any of that stuff. And I'm not saying that we're better off now than we were, but I'm so glad that we didn't have, because I mean, we got up the bus at 3:15, man. I was out playing till dinner time, and then we were back out until 9:00 at night, and that was it. I mean, it didn't matter if it was raining or not. We were out playing. We were getting after it on our bikes and stuff, and that's what we did. And
man, my friend had it was like a family compound in Haleyville. Okay, his parents lived in a house. His grandparents lived in the house next to them. And then his aunt and uncle lived in the house next to them. And they all had like 5 or 6 acres.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was just like, we could go out and we would make we would either take little plastic guns out, dress up like army men, or we would make stuff out of sticks. And man, we were out there all day, all day long. It was like 30 acres of no holds barred. And we would make old rusty swings. We would turn them into that was the basketball goal, because we could dunk. It was old enough where we could dunk. So we would just take a ball, and that old rusty swing cage was the rim.
Yeah.
And man, I'm talking hours until we got blisters on our hands. We were being Jordan.
I know.
It was crazy.
I know, man. It was just we had this thing called handball. It was just a blue ball in our hands. And we'd hit it up against a wall, and we'd have I have a bracket. We'd have 6 or 7 guys come over. We played handball, and we made up our own rules as we went, and we just hit the ball up against the side of the house for 6 hours. That was it, man.
And kids will still do that. My kids will still do that if you give them the means to do it.
Yeah. And then they say that's the best thing to do for your kids. With summer coming up, let them get bored. We're trying to give kids VBS things. I'm not saying some of it's not fine, but we're looking at the summer calendar, and we're like, okay, this week we're on vacation. Okay, what are we gonna do this week? What are we gonna do this week? Just let them be bored as hell. Let them sit around. They'll figure something out. They'll go. They'll meet somebody in the neighborhood. They will figure something out. But our kids don't get bored. We try to keep them so interested in so many things, and it's not good for them. They need to fit. That's where they learn a lot of things, when they get bored. So yeah,
that's right.
Great time, man. We got lots of emails, questions to get into. A ton of email questions. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Listenership is through the roof, by the way, which is fantastic. So we're going to try to get through as many of these as we possibly can. 208-0301, 208-0301 at rossbridgevet.org.com. Check out the website, and of course on Facebook as well. And we'll find out if, what are you smiling at? We'll find out if you've had anything interesting going on. Did I say something wrong?
No, you add the org to our website.
Oh yeah, what's org, .net. It's all the same.
.gov, rossbridgevet.gov.
Yeah, .net. I'm .net. It's all the same. Ted in Birmingham wants us to give a preview of the snake season. We always talk about this every year. It is starting to warm up. The snakes are coming out. It hadn't rained the last few days, so they're looking for something thirsty. How do we know if they're poisonous snakes? How do you know if a fat snake bites your dog? Is it okay? And we know that it doesn't have as much poison in it. You and I have had this discussion. Should we give our dogs mouth to mouth? Should we take it in? Should we leave it alone? What do we do when our dog gets bitten by a snake?
Never give a snake mouth to mouth.
Okay.
So that's step number one.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Don't give a snake mouth to mouth. I would treat all snakes as poisonous.
Yep.
If you don't know anything about snakes.
Yeah.
If you don't know anything about snakes, just treat them like they're all poisonous. Most poisonous snakes around here will have a very triangular head.
Mm-hmm.
Most non-poisonous snakes, it's almost like an oblong head.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's almost like a lizard, these green lizards that run around. They almost have the same head as those lizards.
Mm-hmm.
But poisonous snakes are going to have a very triangular shaped head. Snake bites are worse after the snake has not had a meal for a while. So if you get a snake that hasn't eaten in a few days that bites you, they're going to have a lot of venom. and the complications from the bite are going to be much worse.
Yeah.
If they have eaten recently, then you may be lucky enough to have a dry bite where they don't give you any venom.
Okay. Talk about some of the symptoms. We've all had the dog that came up from the backyard and it just starts acting really bizarre and strange. It doesn't move. And normally you will see, sometimes you can actually see the puncture marks of the bite, but talk about that a little bit.
So best case scenario, if it is a venomous snake, it'll just be a local reaction where they have a lot of swelling. They'll have a lot of edema, so it's basically kind of a soft swelling. Mm-hmm. There'll be some bruising. They may even have some weeping of that area, not of blood, but almost of like a clear kind of fluid from the pressure that edema or swelling puts on there. You can have a range of local tissue necrosis or death, depending on how bad the bite is. They may have none, or they may lose a lot of skin. They call it sloughing. So sloughing, yeah. Okay. So a lot of their skin may actually bruise so bad that it dies.
Okay.
But the systemic complications you can have, they can have some clotting issues, which can create really tiny microclots everywhere, and that's usually how they can die. They can form an embolism or a blood clot. And, that's cardiovascular things, respiratory things are all kind of caused by that cascade of having a clotting problem.
Okay.
So that's where you get into trouble.
So we've talked about this. So I've learned, and I've actually taken my dog. I had Freddie dog. He got bitten in the backyard, on the side of the face. You could see he just stood there. You could tell something was going on. You could see he was bleeding from the lip. And of course I took him to an emergency place. This is before we started the show. I would have called you first, but you weren't even open. It was like a Sunday night at 7:00 or whatever. I took him to a place and they were like, okay, are you giving us permission to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? And I said, no. And you remember my story with Freddie dog. I was like, no, there's a great dog, but I, first of all, I never heard of that. And I was like, no, because it was going to be like another $1,500. They wanted to keep it overnight. But then after having a conversation with you, the king of all veterinarians, you were telling me as long as the dog has not appeared, it looks like it's incredibly uncomfortable, let it go for a day or two and just make sure it's okay.
You can do that. Yeah. I mean,
it's not going to, the bite's not going to kill the dog, is it? Usually?
No, not usually. I've never had a dog die of a snake bite.
Okay.
But what you want to do is you want to monitor where they were bitten. Mm-hmm. And if you get, really deep purple skin, then it needs attention.
Yeah.
If they have any problems breathing, it needs attention. It's always kind of good practice to have their clotting times done a day or two after the bite to be sure they're able to clot their blood and they're not, overly clotting. They're appropriately clotting their blood. So,
okay.
That's kind of the way you approach snake bite.
All right. There you go. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Tabitha says, I'm allergic to my husband's new cat. Does that mean I'm allergic to all cats?
Not necessarily, but probably. And what she's allergic to is the saliva from the cat. The cat grooms itself.
I think that's one of the most amazing things I've learned on the show. You're not allergic to cats, so there's fur. You're allergic to its saliva. Explain that. It's amazing.
Well, that's just where the allergen comes from. It comes from the saliva, in their mouth.
Yeah.
So there are pet food companies, like big reputable pet food companies that make foods that don't ask me how they work. I don't know. Probably should know, but I don't. But they somehow, some way, they alter, and it's safe. These dog food companies, they don't make things that aren't safe. So intentionally anyway. But it alters the saliva so that we're not supposed to be allergic to it anymore. So look into that if you're so inclined.
Okay. John in Hueytown says that his dog is in heat, but the male is not interested. How can I get my dogs to mate? Outside making a nice dinner, maybe some soft music.
I was thinking of a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, maybe Ed's Pet World will have some kind of negligee that the female can wear.
Outside some type of artificial insemination, if you don't want to have to go through that, because I'd assume that'd be kind of expensive. Is there any way to make your dog mate? I mean, your dog knows that she's in heat. I mean, I can trust you that.
Yeah. Well, short of just being sure they're physically able to, get to each other when the time is right, there's really nothing you can do as far as, like natural, what we call live cover breeding.
Yeah.
If, you can be sure that they are both able to reproduce, first of all. And there's certain tests you can run for that. And then if they are, they're still not doing what they need to do, then you can collect the male and inseminate the female.
Yeah. And then you have the grandis bulbus. That was called the grandis bulbus.
The grandis bolus.
The grandis bolus. I love that.
It's the bulbus glandis.
The bulbus glandis. I love the bulbus glandis too. If your dogs are mating and she's screaming, do not try to pull them apart. All the Vaseline in the world will not help. Trust me, I know. You're like, what the hell are you doing? Leave them alone. I'm like, oh, I did not know.
Yeah, you don't like to get interrupted either.
No, and you'd have to go back 10 years since the last time that happened. So I'm not even going to worry about that unless you're. Never mind. We've got several emails. I don't bring this up a whole lot because I think we've talked about it before, but several people have asked about dog gas. Dogs all of a sudden got really bad gas. What's up?
So gas is always created by. Sorry, my phone is trying. This is the worst possible time for my phone to be like recording. My wife texted me, so I just want to be sure it wasn't an emergency. So I open it up, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't close it.
Oh, okay.
So it's still, it's typing out a text about dog farts right now.
Just don't hit send, baby.
Yeah. So gas is created by two things. Well, it's always created by what you eat. So the dog is either eating things that are creating the gas, like food, or dogs also, if they swallow a lot of air, they will have gas.
Yeah.
So if it's really smelly gas, it's probably something they're eating. If it's just kind of gas and it doesn't really have too bad of a smell, it might be that they're just swallowing a lot of air, either when they exercise or when they eat or drink. Dogs are kind of gassy because their heads are down when they eat and drink. So when they, when they are doing those things, they ingest a lot of air. And so all that air, most of the time it works its way out the back. And so they have a lot of gas. Yeah. But if nothing has changed and your pet is having a lot of gas, then I would hypothesize that it is eating something somewhere that is you may not know about, and that's creating the gas.
All right. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net, brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics. For all your comics and toys needs, man, they got everything, and most of it's still in the box. Legos, you name it, they've got it. It's all kinds of stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, including comics down there. He's got some really expensive comics down there. Sasquatch Toys and Comics down there in Homewood. Check it out. Stephen recently went to a blood mobile to give blood, and he said, I was thinking about dogs. Do dogs have the same type of blood that humans do? Do they have different blood types? And typically, how long does blood last for a dog? I know we're always wanting blood for humans. We're always running out of blood. But how's that work for dogs? How do they need transfusions? Is that something where does it last for months? What's the deal with blood?
That's a good question. And they're literally like entire books written on that question. Okay. So dogs do have blood types. Mm-hmm. They are different. Well, they are different than human blood types. Okay. Some of them are the same. Some of them are different. You cannot give a person dog blood and you cannot give a dog human blood. Okay. Dogs and cats, they do need transfusions. We actually had a dog in here last week that came in. We may have even mentioned it on the show. I think we did. He came in just out of the blue, very pale, very weak. And this pet actually passed away. But it had a very serious case of an immune-mediated disease where his immune system was destroying his red blood cells. Wow. So once we figured that out, he needed to have a blood transfusion, and he needed to be monitored before, during, and after that. So once we figured out what was going on, we sent him to one of the emergency practices here. And the emergency practices, they actually order blood products. and there's fresh whole blood, and that's just you get that from another dog. You can transfuse a dog with it. There's fresh frozen plasma. Plasma is the cells are taken out, and you can use that for different types of transfusions. There's packed whole blood. So there's these different blood products that you use for different things. And so the ER, since they do probably, I can't tell you how many more transfusions they would do than a general person, but it's a lot. So they keep this stuff on hand. And some of it, they buy, from vendors rather than get it themselves. The shelf life, as far as outside the body, it kind of depends on how it's kept and which blood product it is. But once you give that to a pet, the life of a red blood cell that you have transfused is actually not very long. It might be a day.
Oh, wow.
So that's why when a pet needs a transfusion, you usually need multiple ones. Okay. Yeah. Or you need medication to help, stop that degradation of the red blood cells.
How many pints of blood does a dog take typically?
So it depends on the size of the dog. To be honest with you, there's a formula that I have that I look up every time, because there's a certain amount of medication there's a certain amount of blood you can take based on the size of the dog. Okay. So if you have a donor, there's only a certain amount you can take. And then when you give it to a dog, you only have to give it so much. Okay. So there's a formula that I always use.
There you go. Great question. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Pickles. Okay. Pickles in Birmingham has got a pedigree dog and has heard that if it breeds with a mutt, she can no longer have purebred litters. Is that true?
No, I don't. I mean, I've never heard that.
Like that'll screw up if she hangs out with the wrong dog. It's going to throw her off.
No. I mean, she could have a litter by one dog and have a litter by another dog, and they'd be purebred dogs.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like a good girl getting together with a bad boy, and she's never the same.
yeah, because like, you could have multiple partners that are different races. Yeah, and the baby is going to depend on each different partner.
Yeah. My daughter was asking, she's still trying to hit me up for a dog. We got those baby chihuahuas next door. She was asking about a St. Bernard doodle. And I said, I don't think
those are cool.
Is there a St. Bernard doodle?
Yeah. Bernie doodle.
A Bernie doodle. Okay. We had a couple of people ask, what's the strangest pair of dogs you've ever seen hook up, and what was the puppy called?
I mean, I've seen a lot that,
has anybody tried just to artificially, because obviously if you got a dog this big and a dog is 800 pounds, you can't mate them together because they can't get together, but you could artificially inseminate a dog with whatever you want. So sure. Is there somebody out there doing that? I know the Russians used to have all kinds of breeding things with monkeys and stuff. They had humans breeding with monkeys and goats and stuff like that.
They did not. Did they really?
In Kazakhstan, they had some breeding thing. There were cages of monkeys and they were breeding with human beings to build a better soldier and stuff. But I mean,
oh my gosh,
there's got to be someone out there who's had like a couple of dogs that was thinking, wow, like a wire fox terrier with a St. Bernard would be a really cool thing. Let's see what happens here. And then just, I mean, it's like spinning the wheel and seeing what comes out.
I'll tell you that one of my favorite names and breeds, they're so cute. It's a puggle. It's a pug and a beagle. And they're really cute. And their name is awesome.
That sounds like a dog that would stink. Beagles stink.
Yeah. Their name is awesome. Puggle.
It's
like cuddle.
Does it have a pushed up snout like a pug?
A little bit. And they have a long tail like a beagle, but it's curly.
Really?
They're cute. They're really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So any other weird, like you could take a Mastiff and put it with a Chihuahua, what would it turn out to be? A Chihuahua.
I don't think that
a Chihuahua with 3 foot legs.
That would work.
No, but what would happen? It would just be another. If you took a female Saint Bernard with a Chihuahua.
The Saint
First of all, you need a lot of Chihuahuas. You probably need a lot of sperm to fill up that what would happen if you did that?
Well, the
Or just wouldn't
big
take.
dog the big dog has to be the female.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna be in trouble.
Exactly. You can't have a chihuahua having St. Bernard puppies. And this may be one of those things where it's kind of like inbreeding. Maybe life just has a way of saying we're not doing that, right? Maybe she just doesn't get pregnant. Because she's inseminated doesn't mean she's going to get pregnant, right?
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. It's true.
Yeah. So she may just have a miscarriage if you try to like do Frankenstein's monster with your puppy dogs.
I'm having to calculate as we're talking. I'm having to calculate.
I'll bet you there's an app or somewhere where you take two dogs and link them together, and they could tell you what it would turn out to be. There's got to be something out there.
If there's not, we should make it.
Yeah, there's got to be something out there where you take two different dogs and put them together because everyone would love to see what that would look like. I mean, we do it with flowers and stuff. Why not do it with their dogs? All right, tell people how they can find you, my man. It's always fun and exciting.
You can call us at 208-0301. You can email us rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook
or .org or .net or .gov.
.gov. rossbridge.gov.
Thank you, brother. I'll catch up with you next week.
All right, see ya.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.